The glowing plants on planet Kepler 442b had always been a mystery. Their strange light patterns made no sense to human scientists. But everything changed when Dr. Sarah Chin started working with Lieutenant Kira Thane. Kira was half Illyrian, which meant she could see and hear things that humans couldn't. For 3 years, they worked together as the perfect team. Sarah was brilliant at understanding data and making sense of numbers. Kira could sense electrical signals that human eyes and ears missed completely. Together, they discovered that the glowing plants were actually talking to insects and small animals. This discovery could change how people grow food on all the space colonies. But now their time together was ending. Kira was packing her things into gray military boxes. She had new orders, a dangerous mission called Project Horizon that would take her deep into space for 5 whole years. No messages, no calls, no contact at all. All the important files are in Section 7, Kira said, keeping her voice calm and professional. It was easier to talk about work than feelings. I wrote down how to use the special sensors. Your human senses should work fine for most of the research, but you won't catch some of the tiny details I could see. Sarah nodded and typed notes on her computer. She tried not to think about how different everything would be without Kira. The plant and animal connection patterns you found will give me enough work for at least 2 years. The research will keep going, Kira said. You're the smartest plant scientist I've ever met. This compliment meant a lot. During their 3 years together, Sarah had published more important papers than in the 10 years before. Working with Kira made her better at everything. Your special abilities made all our discoveries possible, Sarah replied, checking another file on her screen. Normal human senses would never have caught those electrical signals that showed how plants and animals talk to each other. Kira's pointed ears moved slightly, a small sign of amusement that Sarah had learned to notice. Illyrians showed feelings differently than humans. Good science needs both of us, Kira said. Being able to sense things is just the first step. You provided the smart thinking that made the data important. The research station's main lab had been their shared workspace for 3 years. All the equipment was set up to work with both human analysis methods and Illyrian super senses. Sarah looked around the familiar room, already feeling how empty it would be with only one person. Dr. Chin, Kira said, using Sarah's formal title to show this was official business. I want you to know that this new assignment is the best chance for my military career. The commanders think Project Horizon is very important for protecting all the colonies. I understand, Lieutenant. Military duties come first, before research projects. They both sounded professional, but underneath they were both hurting. Sarah had been dreading this day for months. Kira had tried to get her assignment changed, but that would have hurt her military career. The transport ship comes tomorrow morning at 8, Kira continued, looking at her tablet. We need to finish moving all equipment tonight. Sarah nodded, though the word transition felt too simple for the end of the best partnership of her career. I'll adjust the final equipment settings after dinner. The air monitors need to be changed so one person can handle them. About dinner, Kira said, her professional mask slipping a little. Would you rather eat alone tonight? Sometimes last meals together can be complicated. This showed how hard they were both trying to keep their emotions under control. 3 years of shared meals, late-night research sessions, and exciting discoveries had created a bond much deeper than just work friendship. I think we should eat together, Sarah said carefully. We have research summaries to discuss, and I need to understand your calibration methods well enough to keep working after you're gone. It was a good work-related reason for spending their last evening together, though both women knew the real reason was emotional. Kira smiled, and her whole face changed from military efficiency to something warmer and more personal. Then I'll cook something special. Alerian food goes well with the vegetables we've been growing in the water gardens. I'd really like that. The afternoon passed with the mechanical work of moving equipment and checking data. Both women found themselves taking longer than needed on routine tasks, trying to preserve the familiar rhythm of working together. Each equipment check and file transfer felt important because it was the last one. Sarah, Kira said as they finished the last equipment setup. Using first names instead of titles showed this was personal, not professional. I want you to know that working with you has been the best assignment of my military career. Not just the science part, but personally too. The statement hung in the air between them, carrying meanings that neither was ready to fully explore. For me too, Sarah replied, understanding they were getting into emotional territory that would make tomorrow's goodbye much harder. Our partnership has created work that will influence plant science research for many years. That's not exactly what I meant. Sarah looked up from her tablet, meeting Kira's eyes directly for the first time that day. What she saw there revealed feelings that had been carefully hidden under professional politeness for months. I know, Sarah said quietly. But tomorrow you leave for 5 years. Some conversations are too important to start when they can't be finished properly. Kira nodded slowly, understanding the wisdom of emotional caution, even as she struggled with the desire to finally say what their partnership had really become. Dinner at 7? She asked, returning to safe professional scheduling. 7 sounds perfect. As Kira left for her quarters, Sarah realized their final evening together would require careful balance between the honesty they both wanted and the emotional protection they both needed. The data transfer work required careful attention to every detail. Each file had to be checked against backup systems to make sure 3 years of groundbreaking research would survive when only one researcher remained. Sarah watched the progress bars with mechanical focus, trying not to think about tomorrow. Kira double-checked calibration settings with the precision that had made their partnership so scientifically successful. The plant-animal connection mapping files are complete, Kira announced, reviewing the final transfer logs. All the light spectrum analysis data, electrical readings, and biological interaction models are now in your main research files. Sarah nodded, updating her own tracking systems. I've reorganized the analysis methods for single-person operation. It won't be as elegant as our team methods, but the research can continue. They both understood that not as elegant was a polite way of saying it would be much harder. Their research methods had grown around the unique combination of Kira's enhanced senses and Sarah's analytical skills. Together they could discover things neither could find alone. Do you remember the first time we detected the plant-insect electrical communication? Kira asked, taking a break from technical work to share a memory. Sarah smiled despite the sadness that came with most of their memories now. You kept saying something was wrong with the sensors because the readings didn't match any known biological patterns. And you spent 3 days recalibrating equipment that was working perfectly until you finally trusted my senses enough to consider we might have found something completely new. That discovery led to their first joint research paper, Electrical Symbiosis in Colonial Flora, Evidence for Interspecies Communication Networks. It revolutionized understanding of how ecosystems work together and earned them both awards for advancing colonial agriculture science. The memory carried the warmth of shared professional success, but it also highlighted how much their work had depended on intellectual partnership that couldn't be copied after tomorrow. The follow-up research identified 16 different communication frequencies, Sarah continued, calling up the relevant data files. Your ability to sense the full electrical spectrum made it possible to map the entire connection network. Your mathematical modeling made those sensations scientifically meaningful. Feeling something without a thinking framework is just interesting personal experience. They worked through the afternoon with the smooth coordination that had developed over 3 years of shared laboratory time. Each could anticipate what the other needed with unconscious timing that marked successful partnerships. Kira, Sarah said during a brief pause in data checking, what can you tell me about Project Horizon? I understand if most details are secret, but knowing something about your new assignment would help me picture what you'll be doing. Kira's expression showed the conflict between personal desire to share and military obligations to keep secrets. Deep space scouting. Extended mission with no regular communication. The specifics are classified, but the general purpose involves establishing preliminary survey data for potential colonial expansion. Dangerous work. All deep space missions carry risks, but my hybrid biology provides advantages for long-term space travel that make me particularly suitable for extended scouting assignments. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's air conditioning. 5 years without communication means no way to know if you're safe, successful, or even alive. Military families learn to accept such uncertainties. It's part of the commitment that service requires. The matter-of-fact tone couldn't hide the emotional weight of what Kira was describing. 5 years of complete separation with no possibility of contact or reassurance about each other's welfare. I'll keep sending research updates to your military file, Sarah said, reaching for connection that would survive their separation. When you return, you'll have 5 years of discoveries to review. I'd like that very much. Knowing that our work continues will make the isolation more bearable. They returned to technical work, but the conversation had shifted the emotional atmosphere from professional efficiency to personal recognition of what separation would cost them both. The water gardens need adjustment for single-person maintenance, Kira noted, reviewing station management procedures. The Alerian vegetables require specific electrical frequency exposure that your equipment can't provide naturally. I'll modify the growing chambers to compensate. The vegetables have become too important to our nutrition balance to abandon them. They've also become important to our shared meals. Some of my best memories from this assignment involve dinner conversations about research discoveries. Sarah looked up from her equipment logs, recognizing the shift toward increasingly personal territory. Those conversations were the highlight of most days. Sharing discoveries with someone who understood both the scientific and personal significance made every breakthrough more meaningful. For me as well. I've never had a research partner who combined professional excellence with personal compatibility so perfectly. The statement carried implications that both women recognized but weren't prepared to explore fully. Their intellectual partnership had evolved into something deeper than professional collaboration, though neither had acknowledged the emotional dimensions that complicated their working relationship. Sarah, Kira said carefully, I want you to know that if circumstances were different, if my military obligations didn't require this assignment, I would choose to continue our partnership indefinitely. Even knowing that human-Alerian collaborations face cultural complications that purely human partnerships avoid. Professional or personal partnerships? Sarah asked, her heart rate increasing as their conversation approached acknowledgement of feelings they'd both carefully avoided discussing. Kira was quiet for a long moment, her expression showing the conflict between honesty and emotional self-protection. Both. Though the professional partnership is the only one we've been able to explore fully. The admission hung between them like a bridge toward territory that neither felt prepared to cross completely. Kira, Sarah said slowly, tomorrow you leave for 5 years. Tonight might not be the ideal time to begin conversations about possibilities we can't pursue. You're right. But pretending those possibilities don't exist makes their denial more difficult rather than easier. They returned to equipment calibration with shared understanding that their final evening together would require careful navigation between honesty and emotional practicality. Dinner in the station's small common area carried the bittersweet atmosphere of a celebration that was also a farewell. Kira's carefully prepared Alarian cuisine created flavors that would remind Sarah of their partnership long after tomorrow's separation. The hydroponic vegetables they'd grown together provided ingredients that transformed routine station rations into something approaching gourmet dining. "This is remarkable," Sarah said, enjoying the complex flavors that combined human and Alarian cooking traditions. "I had no idea you were such an accomplished cook." Alarian food preparation involves electrical frequency manipulation to enhance natural flavors. It's essentially applied science using techniques that human cooking methods can't copy. Kira's ears moved with pleasure at the compliment. "Though the vegetables we've grown together provided ingredients I couldn't have obtained elsewhere." Another successful collaboration between human analytical methods and Alarian sensing abilities. Everything we've accomplished has involved that same collaborative pattern. Different capabilities combining to create results that neither of us could achieve independently. They ate in comfortable silence for several minutes, both women enjoying not just the food, but the familiar rhythm of shared meals that had marked their 3 years of partnership. The station's environmental systems provided gentle background sounds, creating an intimate atmosphere that made the coming separation feel even more significant. "Sarah," Kira said, setting down her eating utensils with deliberate precision, "may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "What will you miss most about our partnership? Professional collaboration or personal companionship?" The question required honesty that would make tomorrow's goodbye more difficult, but Sarah recognized that shallow answers would dishonor the relationship they'd built. "Both, but in different ways. Professionally, I'll miss having a research partner whose capabilities complement mine so perfectly. Personally, I'll miss having someone who understands why scientific discoveries matter enough to share genuine excitement about breakthrough moments." And beyond professional excitement? Personal connection that exists independent of research accomplishments. Sarah met Kira's gaze directly, recognizing they were approaching emotional territory that neither had been willing to explore openly. "Yes, I'll miss you as a person, not just as a research partner. Our friendship became the most important relationship in my life, though I've been careful not to acknowledge that too directly." "Why careful?" "Because acknowledging deep personal feelings for someone whose military obligations prevent long-term relationship development seemed like emotional self-sabotage." Kira nodded slowly, her expression showing both relief and sadness at Sarah's honesty. "I've struggled with similar feelings. Alarian culture approaches emotional attachment differently than humans, but the connection I feel toward you goes beyond species-specific relationship patterns." "How do Alarians approach emotional attachment?" "More directly than humans. Typically, we acknowledge feelings when they develop rather than analyzing their practical implications before deciding whether to express them." "And what feelings have you been acknowledging?" Kira was quiet for a moment, her ears moving in the subtle patterns that indicated internal conflict. "Affection that extends beyond professional collaboration. Personal attachment that makes your company essential to my emotional well-being. Attraction that complicates both friendship and working relationship." The admission created silence that felt both revealing and dangerous. Sarah felt her pulse increase as she processed the implications of what Kira had shared. "Attraction?" she asked carefully. "Romantic interest. Emotional and physical attraction that I've been managing carefully to preserve our professional partnership." Sarah felt something fundamental shift in her understanding of their relationship. "I had no idea you felt that way." Human emotional expression patterns are more subtle than Alarian communication. I wasn't certain whether your feelings extended beyond professional partnership and personal friendship. They do. They have for months, though I've avoided acknowledging it because the practical complications seemed impossible to overcome. What complications? Species differences, military obligations, the probability that expressing romantic feelings would compromise the most important professional partnership of my career. And now tomorrow I leave for 5 years, which eliminates the professional partnership regardless of what we acknowledge about personal feelings. Sarah considered the logic of what Kira was suggesting. Are you saying that we should have explored romantic possibilities earlier? I'm saying that we still could explore them now if both of us wanted to. 5 years separation doesn't negate feelings that already exist, though it certainly complicates their practical expression. The conversation had moved beyond careful emotional management into territory that would fundamentally change the relationship regardless of tomorrow's separation. Kira, Sarah said slowly, if we acknowledge romantic feelings now, tomorrow's goodbye becomes much more difficult. True, but denying those feelings doesn't make them disappear. And pretending they don't exist makes honesty impossible. So what are you suggesting? That we spend our final evening together acknowledging what our partnership has meant personally rather than hiding behind professional courtesy. Sarah felt her rational mind arguing with emotional impulses that had been carefully suppressed for months. That's either courageous or catastrophically poor timing. Probably both. But tomorrow you'll know that someone cares about you deeply, and I'll know that my feelings were mutual rather than one-sided professional admiration. And in 5 years, when I return, we'll have had time to think about whether temporary separation justifies permanent denial of feelings that we both recognize as significant. Sarah looked at Kira across the small table, seeing her research partner, her closest friend, and the person whose company had become essential to her daily happiness. The practical complications remained overwhelming, but the emotional truth was equally undeniable. Kira, she said quietly, I think I've been in love with you for months without allowing myself to recognize it consciously. I know I've been in love with you for months, though allery and emotional recognition patterns made the feelings more obvious to me than they apparently were to you. The admission transformed their final evening from professional farewell to personal recognition of feelings that would survive tomorrow's separation. Morning arrived with the mechanical precision of automated systems cycling through wake routines, though neither Sarah nor Kira had slept much after their conversation had fundamentally redefined their relationship just hours before separation. The transport ship waited in the station's docking bay with military efficiency, its crew preparing for immediate departure once Lieutenant Kirathane completed her transfer procedures. All personal equipment secured, Kira reported, though her professional tone couldn't hide the emotional strain of final preparations. Research handover complete. Station systems configured for single operator protocols. Sarah nodded while updating the official logs, trying to focus on administrative details instead of the growing certainty that watching Kira board that transport would be the most difficult moment of her career. I'll send research updates to your military file every 3 months, Sarah said, grasping for connection that would survive their separation. When you return, you'll have complete records of how our discoveries influenced later research. I'll look forward to reading them. Knowing that our work continues will make the isolation more bearable. They walked toward the docking bay in silence, both women struggling with the weight of feelings acknowledged too late to explore properly. Last night's conversation had transformed their goodbye from professional farewell to personal recognition of love that couldn't be pursued. The transport's loading ramp extended with hydraulic efficiency while military personnel moved equipment with the practiced rhythm of routine deployment procedures. Commander Hayes, the transport's commanding officer, consulted his tablet with the expression of someone maintaining tight departure schedules. Lieutenant Kirathane, he announced, boarding in 5 minutes. Final equipment check complete. all systems ready for immediate departure. Understood, sir, Kira replied, her military bearing intact despite the personal turmoil that Sarah could see in her expression. They stood near the transport's entrance, surrounded by the mechanical efficiency of military logistics that made emotional farewell feel both urgent and inadequate. 3 years of partnership couldn't be properly honored in the few minutes that remained before duty separated them. Sarah, Kira said, her voice carefully controlled, I want you to know that working with you has been the most meaningful assignment of my career, professionally and personally. For me as well. Our partnership produced work that will influence plant biology research for decades. But more importantly, it showed me what genuine intellectual and emotional compatibility feels like. I hope you find someone who appreciates both your scientific brilliance and your personal qualities as much as I do. I hope your new assignment provides colleagues worthy of your capabilities and friendship. The exchange sounded appropriately professional for public consumption, though both women understood the deeper emotional currents that couldn't be expressed openly in front of military personnel. 2 minutes, Lieutenant, Commander Hayes announced. Kira turned toward the transport, her military obligations requiring immediate compliance with departure schedules. Sarah felt panic rising as she realized their goodbye was ending before either had found adequate words for what their partnership had meant. Kira, she called, causing her partner to pause at the bottom of the loading ramp. Yes. Take care of yourself out there. Come back safely. I will. Continue the research. Make discoveries that change the galaxy. Kira took 2 steps up the ramp, then stopped completely and turned back towards Sarah with an expression that carried 3 years of shared work and the weight of feelings finally acknowledged. Sarah, she said, her voice barely audible despite the transport bay's acoustics, may I ask you something before I go? The question created a moment of perfect suspension where both women recognized that whatever followed would either provide closure or make separation infinitely more difficult. Sarah felt her heart rate increase as she processed the implications of Kira's request. Of course, she managed, though every instinct warned that some questions were too dangerous to answer honestly in moments like this. Kira descended the ramp slowly, her military efficiency abandoned in favor of personal necessity that superseded departure schedules. If I weren't leaving for 5 years, she said quietly, standing close enough that their conversation couldn't be overheard by transport crew, and if military obligations didn't complicate everything we've built together, would you want to explore what we acknowledged last night? The question hung between them like a bridge toward possibilities that circumstances wouldn't allow them to pursue. Sarah felt the weight of honesty that could either provide comfort or create unbearable pain. Yes, she said without hesitation. If circumstances were different, I would want to explore every possibility that love like this creates. Even knowing that human-Alarian relationships face cultural challenges that same-species partnerships avoid, especially because our differences created a partnership more fulfilling than anything I've experienced with purely human relationships. Kira smiled with radiant sadness, the expression transforming her features from military efficiency to something purely personal. Then I have something to hope for during 5 years of deep space isolation, she said. And you have something to consider while continuing research that will hopefully resume together when I return. Are you saying that when you return? I'm saying that love acknowledged honestly creates obligations that survive temporary separation. If you're willing to wait 5 years for someone whose military career complicates everything, then I'm willing to request assignment modifications that prioritize personal relationship over career advancement. Sarah felt tears threatening despite her determination to maintain composure during public goodbye. Kira, are you suggesting we commit to each other across 5 years of separation based on feelings we've acknowledged for less than 12 hours? I'm suggesting that 3 years of partnership created something worth preserving through temporary difficulty. Last night confirmed that our connection extends beyond professional collaboration into territory that deserves exploration when circumstances allow. And if circumstances never allow proper exploration, then at least we'll both know that the feelings were mutual and meaningful rather than one-sided professional admiration. Commander Hayes approached with the expression of someone whose departure schedule was being compromised by personal drama. Lieutenant Kirathane, we need immediate departure to maintain mission timeline. Yes, sir, Kira replied, though her attention remained focused on Sarah. I'll wait, Sarah said quickly, understanding that their conversation had reached its conclusion. 5 years, and then we'll discover what's possible when duty doesn't separate us. I'll come back, Kira promised. And when I do, we'll have time to explore everything we've acknowledged. She boarded the transport with military efficiency, though she paused at the entrance for one final look toward Sarah. The loading ramp retracted with hydraulic finality, sealing away the most important person in Sarah's life for the next 5 years. As the transport departed, Sarah realized that their final question and answer had transformed separation from ending into beginning. 5 years would provide time to consider possibilities that had been acknowledged too late to pursue immediately, but early enough to survive the wait. The research station felt impossibly empty after the transport's departure, but Sarah understood that their work and their relationship would continue through whatever form of patience and hope could sustain them across the distance that duty required.